Good morning, Wednesday morning. Ever felt like you've messed up so bad that God couldn't use you? Or that God has great plans, but for other people? Or that Jesus just couldn't use you, you're not worthy, or you just haven't got what it takes to be used to do anything for God and his kingdom? And I think we all feel like that at times. Unfortunately, the scriptural evidence and the testimony of millions stands against you and me. We're carrying on in Mark and going to look at Mark chapter 3, verses 13 to 19. Jesus went up on a mountainside and called to him those he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed 12 that they might be with him, and that he might send them out. Send out is where we get the word apostle from. Send them out to preach. And the word preach there is more to be a preacher, to be a herald, to be someone who tells rather than the act of preaching. And to have authority to drive out demons. Talked about authority last time. These are the 12 he appointed: Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, little rock, Rocky; James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. To them he gave the name Boanerges, which means sons of thunder. So it seems like they or their father had anger problems. Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, which means twin; James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. Jesus had been preaching around Galilee. In Luke 4, a couple of places it says this: Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread throughout the whole countryside. He was teaching in their synagogues and everyone praised him. Then he went down to Capernaum, a town in Galilee, and on the Sabbath he taught the people. They were amazed at his teaching because his words had authority. So Jesus had been gathering momentum, his preaching in all the synagogues. He'd started to get known and heard about and gaining a reputation. And here in Mark chapter 3, it's almost a summary. And as you read through the Gospels, Jesus has been calling various disciples. But here we have this sort of summary in Mark chapter 3 where he calls the 12 to be with him. Jesus had many disciples, but here he's making a very significant comment of gathering 12 that would then be sent out. And all through Scripture, Yahweh has used the small to impact the greater, used the weak to influence many, to take one man, one family, one tribe, one nation, to change the nations, to impact others. And here he gathers 12 that influence a nation, and then that nation would then influence the world. All through Scripture we see this. Why does God do that? Here he chooses an odd bunch to be with him. And actually we know very little about them. 2 sets of brothers, 5 of them from Bethsaida, the fishing village. One's a tax collector, so one on the outside, a zealot, who was a sort of a band of freedom fighters that eventually, in their uprising against the Romans, caused the sacking of Jerusalem. We know one's a twin, one is married, one owns well, 2 of them own a house, Peter and Matthew. But we don't really know a lot about them. But what we do know through them is we know a lot about Jesus. And I think that's the point. A rabbi in those days didn't write books. They didn't waste their life on Twitter or Instagram or spend any time on Facebook. And the whole point was that their Talmudim, their disciples, in Greek the word mathetes is a learner, but Talmudim is just richer. It's someone that they're called to be with Jesus, and they're called to be with them, to be like them. And in this calling of this 12, they left their homes, they left their families, they left their income, and they were never promised riches. They were never promised anything. In fact, they were promised hardship. They were promised persecution. But this intentional life change, this lifestyle change, to focus around Jesus, to be with Jesus, to follow Jesus, means to be just an intimate friend with Jesus. And that's what these 12 others came to do. But these 12 were gathered together in order to be these heralds. And it's through these that the kingdom is extended. It's always through disciples that the kingdom is extended. But we know very little about them. And I think that's part of the point, is our lives, that we may not feel as though we're up to much, as though we may not feel we have a lot to give. But the call of discipleship is a call for each of us to center our lives around Jesus and to point to him, to point others to him, and then to intentionally make other disciples, to help others grow in their relationship with Jesus. The whole point is that, in one sense, we bring the smallness that we have that points to him. So it's a fascinating passage as we go through Mark, and as you read through the Gospels, you'll see all the time the focus of Jesus is to make disciples, and he spends time with them, focusing them, but through them and their lives that we today can know about Jesus. I hope you have a great day.